The gentleman from California, now yield 5 minutes to my friend from the great state of Texas, Chip Roy.
Thank the chairman. Thank you, Ms. Young, for appearing before the committee and for your service. Couple of questions. First question is, with respect to revenue assumptions under the president's budget, I believe and have it that it assumes revenue will average 19.7% of GDP year over year over the course of the window. Is that correct?
That's correct. I believe it goes up a little from that level at the end of the.
Moves around, but I think it
Right.
assumes 19.7% over the window. And 1 year in particular, in 2031, it assumes 20% of GDP. Now, my question, putting aside debates over tax policy and what it does or doesn't do to revenue, because we can have a debate on that, have a whole hearing on that. True or false, though, that 20% of GDP revenue to the federal treasury has never actually been achieved?
Right, in the 2001, 2000, it was closer.
It was close. It was like 19 point, right? But we've never actually got 20%. And this budget does assume 20% in 2031. And 19.7%, would the gentlelady agree that we've only achieved something in that zip code 3 times in our history? Post-World War II, .com time, you roughly described around 2000, 2001. And then in 2022, I think 2021, somewhere around there, that we achieved 19.6-ish% as a percentage of GDP as revenue coming to the treasury. Would you agree roughly with that description?
With those timeframes you've laid out, yes.
Right. And so I guess my point is, notwithstanding that reality, that the budget the president has put forward and that you're here defending assumes revenue over the course of a 10-year window at 19.7%, which we've only achieved 3 times in history. At spikes, right? Spikes on the chart. If you hold a chart up, I've got one on my screen, but not to show you, but you've seen it. It spiked up 3 times at that level. And then we've got it going up to as high as 20%, which we've never achieved. So it begs the question of tax policy that could achieve such a thing, right? Because we've had tax rates as high as 90%. We've had corporate tax rates as high as 35% or 40% or whatever. We've had tax rates lower. We've had, right, it's been all over the entirety of that history from World War II to now. It's been all over the place. So we could debate that, but my question to you is this, is that notwithstanding those assumptions, that's the revenue that would be needed to be brought in order to achieve the objective of what you've got in the budget, that still produces a rather large amount of deficit spending. The truth is that with respect to interest, right, we will pass the amount of interest spending passes defense spending this year. Is that correct?
Yeah, by a small amount, but yes.
And then interest spending cracks $1 trillion in 2026, right? Under the president's budget, $1 trillion will crack in 2026. And that in every year of this proposed budget, interest spending is estimated to be greater than defense spending over the course of that entirety of that 10-year budget. Is that correct?
It depends, you know this, it depends on where interest rates are, that they're a great variable, but our estimates are.
Sure.
It will go up.
Right, so every year in the budget, right, and the whole budget is an estimate. I mean, the whole budget is just,
The further you get out,
right.
Yes.
So you're putting that in there. So my point is just, if you look at the total amount of deficit and total amount of debt that we're racking up, all of that is under the rosiest revenue model we can possibly come up with, well, not possibly, I guess, but a very rosy revenue model as a percentage of GDP coming into the Treasury. So that to me is concerning because history would tell you, right, that the average amount of revenue coming in to the Treasury is 17.5%. So I say that, and then one last point here is like, so today we've got now 24 hours to review this Omnibus spending bill. That's roughly $1.2 trillion, it's over 1,000 pages. And we've got to decide in the next 24 hours whether we're going to support it. You probably can guess whether I'll support it or not. But as we look ahead and look at the bill, my question for you is just this. You came to the negotiating tables along with the President of the United States and the administration with a certain set of priorities. And Republican leadership in the House of Representatives came to the negotiating table with the White House and Chuck Schumer with a certain set of priorities. Yesterday, I saw reported at the Democrat caucus meeting The highlights from my Democratic colleagues, that there's no poison pills on anti-abortion, LGBTQ, or DEI policy riders, significant increase in child care money, DOD climate resilience, humanitarian assistance, Afghan SIVs, increased Title I funding, rejected HR 2 provisions. Would you say that you achieved the priorities that you wanted to achieve and that the president wanted to achieve in your negotiations with on the omnibus spending bill?
I know we're over, but in my most thoughtful way, and I really mean this, is this the bill we would have written if it wasn't divided government? Absolutely not. I think this bill, and I mean this, is a reflection of divided government, and I certainly hope it passes, because the alternative is an avoidable shutdown, and I appreciate neither side got what they wanted. If you ask this side of the ledger, they're unhappy with a lot of things too.
Yield back, Mr.
I thank the gentleman from Texas.